Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Finding Your Voice podcast. This is season 3, and I'm your host, Dr. Velma Bagby. Finding Your Voice podcast is a powerful path designed for everyday people, authors, entrepreneurs, ministry, and business leaders who have found their true inspiration and motivation for their assignment. Our episodes feature authentic and informative conversations designed to help others on a similar path. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode because I'm so excited to invite back to the stage my dear friend, special helper behind the scenes of
Mhm.
my life is Amber Wiggin
Weekend,
Buckley.
yes,
Wiegand
weekend
Buckley.
Buckley.
I've
It's
never had to say that.
well, it is a tongue twister, and I apologize. You have to
No,
just
don't you
ignore the
dare.
I.
I went from Johnson to that name. People say Bagby, not Bagby.
Well, alway people are gonna always get your name wrong, and it keeps you humble, right?
Well, I, it says Velma, but for years they called me Thelma. So there you go. I'm just happy to have you on the platform, Amber. So
I am
welcome.
so
Please
happy.
tell everyone about you and what it is that you do.
It seems so awkward when we start talking about ourselves, but I'll try to get through it. I am the founding editor of Leading Hearts magazine, and it's a women's magazine for Christian women. It is. I also am a Amazon #1 best-selling author, which is kind of peculiar to talk about. I coach authors and speakers, and I support them, and I support Dr. Velma with her website and different things. And I am honored to help women step into their calling because a lot of times, we see and I see God's potential in people and they don't see it for themselves.
Yeah.
And that's really what it's all about, coming into that and coming into the knowledge of who God made you to be and what God made you to say. So thank you so much. This is such a great opportunity to speak on the
Oh.
Finding Your Voice podcast.
Oh, I appreciate it. Well, tell us. I know that you gave us a long list of wonderful things that you're doing. Now, tell us what's your project? What are you working on right now?
Well, right now, I just finished up with my new book, which is kind of 10 years in the making. I'll show you because it's a little bit, but it's called Sister of the Short Yellow Pencils, Mental Health Mayhem, One Sticky Note at a Time. And it's with Abundance Books. And it was a labor of love. It was a labor where I thought I didn't want to write again. And God challenged me. I had written my first book with my co-author, Lisa Burris Burns, and we worked with
Oh,
30
yes, yes,
30 women,
yes.
ghost writing most of the stories, which was an undertaking. That took a year.
Oh, wow.
And after I got done with the journal part, we got done with the journal part. Um, just a lot of impediments, a lot of this is starting, this is stopping, this is starting, this is stopping. We couldn't find a good launch date. We just didn't launch it well because there were so many unpredictable things that happened at the beginning.
Right.
And because of that, I was like, I don't want to write another book
Oh, wow. Yeah.
ever. And that's when God knocked on my door with a pleasant surprise.
I love
Um,
those knocks.
and I was in prayer with a group of people, and it was during the Advanced Writers and Speakers Association conference, and they said, you have been God's secret weapon, and he's about to pull you to the front.
There
And
you
I'm
go.
like, well, he hasn't consulted me about this.
Yeah, right.
And if he pulls me to the front, he's gonna have to show me what I need to say. And
Yeah.
it was in that period, in that same period, another lady who is one of the acquisitions editors for Abundance Books, which Sisterhood is with. Now she came up to me and she said, God has a book in you that you have forgotten about. And I'm
Oh,
like,
wow.
right within the time frame of me receiving that word and then getting that word.
Mhm.
And The word in the prayer time was, this will be happening faster. You can't even keep up with it. It'll just be coming fast and fast and fast. And I was like, okay, whatever. So you leave that. And then
Wow.
you hear another person confirming that there's another book in you. And there's still like, okay, well, where's that third voice? I need to,
Right. The
I
one I
wanted, I
want to
want
hear
another
from.
confirmation. I want another
Yeah.
one. And the confirmation actually came when it was a few months later. I just still falling in my discouragement. My friend and Dr. Sharon North Elliott called me up and she said, do you have an agent? And I said, I'm not looking to write anything. In fact, I'm just hanging on by the skin of my teeth, just doing what I'm doing. And she said, well, abundance is looking for whatever you promised them. And this
Oh,
was months
wow.
later. And I'm like, why would God send you
Hmm.
here? You're not, I mean, she's a good friend, not even an agent to me, and
Right.
tell me through the person at Abundance, I needed to come and submit whatever I need to fit. So she was my third person.
Oh, wow.
She was my third person. And then I was discouraged. So I said, I'm not going to even try. I'm not going to even try. So I just scratched all my chapter names out on an email, random chapter names, and all of a sudden I had a book deal. And what does that I mean, when does that happen? And this is the second time God operated in that
Look
way
at
and in that
that.
capacity,
Yeah. Look at
because the
that.
first time, actually the third time, the first time I didn't have a contract, the second time I didn't have a contract, and this time I didn't have a contract. And all of a sudden, God was divinely drop kicking a book out of me
Mm-hmm.
that I was really cynical about even starting. And then he said this to me
Uh-huh.
in a meeting with the publisher.
Uh-huh.
He said, you're going to write this book in 3 months.
Wow.
And and that was probably one of the scariest things in my life.
Wow.
He said, you're going to write this book in 3 months. And I'm like, do you know my schedule? Did you check it? Are you sure? And he said, and before I knew what I was saying, 3 months popped out of my mouth.
Wow.
And then he revealed to me that I was going to have to pull off the training wheels that I had put on myself with a co-author, you know,
Wow.
because I didn't want to take on the product. Even though I got the deal, I didn't want to, the last deal, I didn't want to take my training wheels off. I wanted to do this and I wanted someone to fall back on. So this was definitely a moment that I had to, okay, God's telling me to do this without my training wheels. Everything in here is telling me I can't. But I realized that this is more about trust in what I can't see
Mm-hmm.
than trust in who I can see around me.
Mm-hmm.
And that was it. That was a wake up moment for me.
Wow.
And but then all of a sudden, I said, God, if this is you, if this is, all of a sudden, things started coming together so fast that I was actually speaking my chapters instead of writing my chapters, which was
Really?
interesting. I started
Yeah.
speaking them. Everything started coming together that way, which is very unique for me because I had to throw aside, I'm a trained journalist. I am trained in journalism. I'm trained in writing. But everything, when I put my hand to paper, all of a sudden my natural amberness fell away and I went into journalism mode.
Oh
So
gosh, isn't that something?
isn't I mean, that was my experience, and that was kind of what was keeping me from communicating, number 1, in a way that I naturally communicate as a, neurodivergent. We talked a little bit about that
Yeah.
before the show, but we'll talk
Yes.
about that a little bit,
Yes, because
during.
people need to understand it.
People need to know what that is,
Uh-huh.
and, uh, uh, one of the things that someone said to me is, if someone could sit across for coffee with coffee for you with you, you would sell 1,000,000 books, and I'm not, as I said, I'm not looking to sell 1,000,000 books. It's nice, I mean, but what they were trying to say is, you have an authentic voice that draws people in.
Mhm.
And when they see that, when it's communicated in its authentic form, without the edits, without all of that, it just is like honey. It draws people in, and I never saw myself honey, but, when God calls you to something, you just
Yeah,
have to operate in it, and
absolutely.
number 2, are we gonna believe what God says? And that's another thing, that's another caveat that came
Accept
into
it.
my whole
Are we
that
gonna
is
accept it?
yeah, and that was
Mhm.
another caveat that came into this whole thing,
Mhm.
and I thought my story now, I'll tell you a little bit about my story now. Back in 2013, I went through a 6-month manic writing spree.
Wow.
I couldn't stop writing. I was writing poetry. I was writing prose. I was going down and laying in fields instead of going to work. That was a very unhinged moment where some beautiful things came out of that and
Uh-huh.
some not so beautiful things came out of that.
Mhm.
I was struggling in my marriage. So a lot of this was trying to grasp for God, how
Yeah.
how does this heal? Where am I finding
Mhm.
my healing? And
Mhm.
then pulling it down to the dark and just really struggling between those two paradoxes in my life. And it drove me absolutely crazy.
Mhm.
And I didn't know how to pinpoint it, and I didn't know how to silence it. Um, but 3 months into it, the enemy led me up a cliff, a rock in the Rocky Mountains,
Uh-huh.
to an edge of a cliff,
Uh-huh.
and that was a profound moment for me. I was at a Christian writing conference. I was the head of this teen magazine that went to 160,000 kids. I had my licensed ministerial credentials.
Right.
So for this moment to be happening, for me to be unraveling and not have a safe place to unravel,
Got it.
yet I was showing everyone when I was writing and rhyming and all this stuff, I was just putting it out there because I was like, I just want to be who I am. I want to be my authentic self. And, you know, um, but at the same time, unraveling in a very um, unhinged way in some
Mhm.
ways.
Uh-huh.
But I see those connections to those godly moments of communication. But when I was down there, when I was down there and being and worn out, and my mind was in its tendrils of last knots,
Mhm.
the enemy wanted to get me. He wanted to get me good.
Yeah.
And that led me to the edge of a mountain in the Rockies during a Colorado Writers Conference, where I just got through teaching authors how to reach teens and the
Yeah.
millennials,
Yeah.
and for that to be such a trick of the enemy,
Yeah.
I remember standing firstly, I was by myself,
Mhm.
okay, drawn up to the mountains, I think that that's where the enemy likes to draw us. He likes to draw us away from the
Yeah, by
herd,
yourself.
away
Yeah.
from the herd by yourself. And I
Mhm.
got to this like open mountain vista where it was just like, oh, this is so beautiful. And then I looked down and I distinctly heard a very dark voice that
Mhm.
said, if there's no darkness in your heart, God will save you if you fall.
Mhm.
And we know
Yeah,
that's
we
one
know.
of his classic tricks, right?
Mhm.
But it was almost in that same pause, I heard the voice, daughter, that's not my voice.
Yeah.
Step back.
Yeah.
So, this is the two things I knew something was very wrong.
Mhm.
And also, the enemy was going to try to bury me when I was down there in that
Yeah.
place.
Yeah.
And it was amazing to me that even all that I've said and all that I recommended to teenagers, I walked back to my room, I shut the door and I shut myself in on that moment. I put all up the barriers. I just put it all up
Yeah.
because these Christian girls, Christian leaders, we're not supposed to have these moments, let alone, do any of this thing, having these moments where, as I said, where you're not in a safe place to fall apart. You have no
Right.
safe place.
Right.
And so 3 months later, after not saying anything about that moment, I went completely unhinged. I was seeing things that weren't there, doing things that weren't, and the beauty of it is I put it all in this book and then hit send and I'm like, what did I just do?
Did God tell you to do that?
Yes. Yes, and this is why he told me to do it.
Yeah.
He told me to use the humor of a moment to
Yeah.
disarm people
Yeah.
and bring them into a deeper
Absolutely.
conversation.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
if you can see my bones and my dirt break and see what level that I went into and how
Mhm.
every brain is capable of breaking. Let's
Yeah.
just put it, we are
Yeah.
bones and dirt with
Yeah.
heavenly breath inside our bodies and a
Mhm.
soul that was created by the divine by the divine creator.
Mhm.
But we break, our brains break,
Yeah.
and our bones break. And this body was made with an expiration date, you
Mhm.
know, and the
Mhm.
things that have happened to us in life, they 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 give us imprints that may
Yeah.
or may not. And the DNA that gets passed down,
Yeah.
there's imprints there.
So
But
is that what you're referring to as neurodivergent?
I am there's a big ball of what neurodivergence is and what um, actual mental illness is. And I was diagnosed, and when I get into the unit in my red scrubs, and I talk about what it was like inside the psych ward, very poignantly and with humor, but with very serious, I
Yeah.
met people and I was flashing my credentials at them and saying, hey, this is me. I don't belong here. I am this person. And I realized it didn't matter a heck
Right.
of a lot.
Right.
We were all the same person. We were
There you
all the
go.
same
Yeah.
people in red scrubs.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I learned a whole thing about not judging people for where
Absolutely.
they were and what they were, what they were struggling with, especially those people on a street corner that I used to judge,
Mhm.
because those were the people without medication. Those were
Or
the
the
people
people with
without
the
a place
white
to
coats
go.
on.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
And so when I realized my authentic God created self that was completely breakable, then I realized that the people who are at the front of the line saying, I have these credentials, there's as many of them struggling with better resources.
Yeah.
There's as many people who have the titles, they're struggling,
Absolutely.
same things, different resources, better supports.
Yeah. My daughter told me that, I told you she's a nurse, an RN, and in the medical field is very prevalent.
Yes.
some of
Yeah.
the challenges that they have to face, and they're
Yeah.
quiet about it.
Yeah, they are. And I know that there's a lot of people put in jeopardy even with their jobs because they take antidepressants or they take
Hmm.
this kind of medication, and it does make you feel like you're the odd one out. It makes you feel like you're broken. It makes you feel like you're used, that you've been junked somehow,
Oh,
um,
wow.
and dealt the card, um, because in my delusion, I thought nobody's ever gonna listen to anything I have to say ever again, and I might as well just take the calling God gave me, wrinkle it up, and throw it in the trash because that's exactly what happened to it right here. And so, going back to what neurodivergent is and what mental illness is, well,
Hmm.
neurodivergence is, and mental illness kind of are these best friends running down the street together.
Got it. Got it. Hmm.
Some of it is, I mean, the neurodivergent side is wiring. It's
Hmm.
how your brain's firing. It's usually something, usually connected with a lot of things connected with, you know, from the womb.
Hmm.
But there are things that exhibit themselves in neurodivergent ways that are a part of trauma and the trauma
Got it.
you experienced as a child. So, as I said, I have to say, hey, if if you're struggling with any of these aspects,
Hmm.
um, go to a doctor.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not your doctor,
Right.
um, because there's a lot of things buried and things are being discovered all the time. One of the things that people, for people who struggle with ADHD, sometimes it is trauma that's occurred in the home, and your body learns to live in fight and flight mode. Well,
Hmm.
what is gonna do that? Those triggers, you're constantly living with an uppity,
Yeah.
your heart's being is being exposed, your brain DNA is being changed in that moment that
Yes.
you don't know what it's like to live in what is called typical normal or flat level. When you've lived all your life in fight or flight,
Oh, wow.
all of a sudden you have all these issues and you don't know why you're having them, and you don't know why you're having trouble focusing, or you don't know why this is. And so, as I said, this is a big ball of neuroscience with mental health and
Uh-huh.
discovery, because we don't find out some of these triggers until we start digging. And this is not just digging um, in the science world, this is digging in each of us. And that's how going to these professionals help us. Yes, we have symptoms, we have struggles. And some of the things that I bring out in the book is actually this is how I have to consider these moments. Um, and one of the things that I put in the book, and actually had a chapter that my husband dictated for me. Um, he's British, and he did it with all the British spelling and the British inflection. So it's really unique, kind of going into that. So I say you're gonna have to be okay with Queen's English in this next chapter because this is my husband, and so we had this interesting tension building in our marriage,
Hmm.
where everything with him was keep calm and carry on. Everything with me was like wow, and 20 years in, and keeping me on a pedestal of this woman is such a perfect woman, and at the same time being embarrassed by some of the crazy things that I did. And it just kind of it got toxic, and I found myself repeating the same things that I dealt with. I mean, I found my home and my husband and myself following some of the same patterns I had had in my own home, where my dad was an
Wow.
untreated person who dealt with, I'm pretty sure, bipolar, personality
Wow.
disorder. I
Yes.
can't diagnose
Hmm.
him, but he was a Christian man. We had 5 kids in our home, and we felt the brunt of his anger, and we felt
Hmm.
that. And he was told by our pastor to just not do medicine, to just pray about it, and
Oh,
we
wow.
suffered. We did. I love my dad, but we suffered. We suffered through it, and I'm
That
not
is
gonna
that
ignore that.
I mean, I'm talking about the pastor giving that kind of
The
instruction.
pastor gave that
Oh,
instruction,
wow.
and there in that caveat, I determined, that's not God's voice to say,
No.
"Be quiet about what
Yeah.
you're dealing with." In fact,
Yeah.
I tell my I tell a lot of people that I learned to lie my best in church,
Mhm. Mhm.
because in the place that we were supposed to be the most vulnerable and the most breakable, we
You had
become
to hide
people
it.
of steel. We become
Yeah.
people of steel, like, we wear you know, the the armor of God is not the armor that keeps, everything out. It's just what it is.
I just recorded an episode today about being truthful and honest with God. I was talking
Yeah.
about Psalms 51, where David was crying out
Mhm.
after he, made the mistake of sleeping with somebody else's
Mhm.
wife, and
Right.
then making sure her husband got killed. I was
Mhm.
talking about all of that, and I said, in verse 6, he begins to say, it reminds us, let me get it in my Esther book.
Mhm.
uh, it was day 10, Psalms 51 and 6. It says, but you desire honesty from the womb, teaching me wisdom even there.
Right.
God downloaded it for us back then, but David was crying out at this time because of what he experienced. He knew to go to God and just repent. And so he began
Right.
to tell him, to cleanse him, to forgive him, to
Yeah.
wash him. And
Yeah.
so when you say that, that's what just triggered for me that moment when I was talking about God is not looking for fake-a-lots. That's
No,
what I call them, Mr. and Mrs. Fake-a-lot. He's not looking for that.
exactly.
He wants us to be transparent. He's looking at the heart, and the heart is going to always reveal the truth.
Yeah. And we talk about this as if it was, about if it as if it was about talking about reality as some sort of a sin, talking about the
No,
reality of
right,
our pain as a sin, and I
right.
think that that's one of the biggest hurdles that occurs in
Absolutely.
the church,
Absolutely.
because we need to be knowing that, didn't Jesus say we'd have in this
Well,
world we'd have trouble? I mean, didn't wasn't that the words that came out of his mouth? Let's just be honest. And if we're going to
right,
believe that, we're going to believe pain exists. We're going to believe, um honest honesty about pain is important, because God calls us not to be liars. But I am also going to frame up that faith in God does not take away or minimize pain. Faith in God helps us see beyond our pain.
that's right.
And pain, yes, it is temporary, and God is above that. But I
Hmm.
love that God has brought me through my pain to give me a new perspective on the honesty in our pain, with the sovereignty of God over it.
Right, right.
Because I struggle still. People are like, "Oh, well, you're not healed." No, it's not that I'm not healed.
Come on now.
I know. Well, the thing about it is, God gave me a prescription for daily healing, and that involves taking my medicine.
Hmm.
Everybody's happy about that, because if I would suddenly stop taking my medicine, everybody in my house would be having a hard time.
Right.
And I respect that God has given me a prescription for my healing journey, you
All
know?
right now.
And it requires me to check in with the shepherd. And my check in with the shepherd, I love this, because I have a picture that I put up in my office. I don't even know if you can see it, but there's a
No.
picture. There's a
Now I see it.
there's
Yes.
a sheep right there.
Right.
He's being anointed with oil, and I found that this was I they do this, and I found this
Yeah.
out with the sheep. And it's, they anointed them with olive oil and just another combination of things, and they do that because if the sheep goes unprotected from that oil, bugs get in their ears and in their
Mhm.
nose,
Mhm.
and the buzzing makes them can make them bash their heads against the wall until they take their own lives. Tell me about what it is to live without the healing protection, the protection of God's oil, without checking in on
Yeah.
that. That is what you get. This
Right.
is what you get.
Right.
If you don't check in with that, that is a part of the prescription. That is a
Mm-hmm.
part of the prescription. Part of the checking of the prescription, yeah, is my daily routine. Am I going to drink my water? Am I going to um, acknowledge when I'm having a hard time and actually posture myself and breathe a little bit and go chew on some ashwangas as I do that? Um,
Wow.
and the the thing about it is I am so glad that God gave us not only his presence, but he gave us his discernment.
You got that
And
right.
he gave us a path
Mm-hmm.
that he says, okay, I this has been given to you. And I believe full well that God can take everything from me. Don't put those
Oh
words
no,
in
I
my
know
mouth.
that.
You know,
Yeah.
and I'm just saying that to whoever's listening. You
Yes.
know, God can take anything away,
Yes,
but
he
does he
can.
use me because I'm struggling? Oh yeah. Oh
Mm-hmm.
yeah, because
Yeah.
I think I am the person that is, whatever thorn in the flesh, that was dealt with.
Yeah.
This is my thorn, and I believe through my authentic brokenness, God shines better through that than he could ever
Mm-hmm.
shine through my
Mm-hmm.
wholeness. You know,
Mm-hmm.
brokenness is a spiritual concept, and
Yes, it
he
is.
never calls us to be unbroken. He
Yes.
calls us to be he calls us to be put together through him and let his
Mm-hmm.
and that is the essence of everything that he is for us.
That's right.
And it took me 50 years to get here, to over 50 years to get to a place where I felt not I don't feel, I know that number 1, God loves me
Mm-hmm.
fully.
Yes.
Number 2, God has fully called me,
Mm-hmm.
and he gives me the boldness to do what he's calling me to do. I don't have to look to the left or the right or the
No.
marketplace.
No.
The marketplace is not where I'm going to get where God wants me to be. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not going to go over and look at the best-selling books and replicate the best-selling books because
No.
it's
No.
marketable. I'm going
No.
to do and I'm going to say and I'm going to be
Mhm.
who God's called me to be
Absolutely.
because I'm walking in his boldness
Yeah.
for the very first time.
Mhm.
He's given me a voice, he's given me legs, and I'm
Yeah.
sure that there's many women who are watching this right now that they feel like their voice has been taken from them, their
Absolutely.
legs have been taken from them, and
Yeah.
they're laying on the ground with no arms, no legs, just fighting to stay alive,
Yeah.
fighting for survival.
Right.
They're in survival mode when it's time to acknowledge the fullness of who God says you are and
That's
to
right.
walk in the fullness of who he's releasing you to be.
Absolutely. Discouragement and being kept from who God has called you to be and keeping you from your purpose, they're so subtle. Some of the things
Mhm.
that keep us are so subtle. I'm
Yeah.
actually looking at putting something together to publish regarding subtle sins because we so
Mm,
miss it. We're
mm.
so focused on the big stuff, like what your
Right.
person told you at your church. No, just be quiet. Just don't say anything.
Yeah.
What is
Yeah.
that all about?
What
Hiding,
you Yeah,
hiding what
exactly.
you're experiencing is supposed to make that more holy.
Yes, and
That's a lie.
I
That's a
wanna say
lie.
I wanna say this to every person who's listening to this,
Hmm.
podcast. When those moments when people speak those things into your lives, you say, um, "Devil, I'm not gonna receive that.
That's right.
I'm not gonna receive that." and that can go down to the pit of hell where it needs to be
I
because
was getting ready to finish that with that because my statement was I'll send that back to the pit of hell from whence it came.
oh yeah, so the Holy Spirit is really vibing here today. And I really love it because you know, when we operate in boldness, when we operate in the
Yes.
fullness of his spirit, that's what he brings. He brings
Yeah,
connectedness. He
absolutely.
brings people who are connected. He brings connected connected people alongside you. He
Yeah,
brings people who need your message under your umbrella. But he'll
absolutely.
also but you know what? The hecklers will come.
Of
The
course,
hecklers
always.
will come. They're always
Always.
gonna be there, and you have to be in a headspace where you're saying no to the hecklers.
So tell us, when is the book going to release?
Well, the book is gonna be released, in May for Mental Health
Okay.
Awareness Month.
Oh, May. Okay.
Yes, we have that strategically placed,
Mm-hmm.
and, I'm excited because it releases in the mainstream. It's actually, being cataloged, as uh, neuroscience, mental health, uh, ADHD, and humor,
Okay.
which is going to be interesting how that all
Yeah,
comes together.
it
But
is.
what I realized in this, and
Mm-hmm.
I'll just going to give you another caveat. I said, God, how much scripture does this book need? And I wrote it down on paper. I said, how much scripture does this book need? And he said clearly, and I wrote it down. Why do you think every time you open your mouth, a Bible verse has to fall out?
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
called you. I have opened your mouth. I
Mm-hmm.
have aligned you with my
Mm-hmm.
heart.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be confident about the heart that I've given you.
That's right.
And you need to be laying on that discernment instead of throwing a bunch of Bible verses at people
Right.
because this is for a greater audience, not for the ones you think will receive it
Yes.
because you're the
Yes.
Christian girl.
Right.
So when I started doing this book, I had this. I think it's this divine setup. Is I was sharing my story, and it's through the lens of a girl who struggles,
Mm-hmm.
but a girl whose eyes are positioned up,
Uh-huh.
but you don't necessarily all the time see, you don't see the scriptures. You just know God is
Right.
there. And
Right.
I am very open about how I'm connected. In fact, I put a warning at the beginning of the book, and it says, by the way, I'm a person of faith in God. And so I put a line, I put a warning. I also put a warning as far as how the book is written because I felt God was wanting me to write to a neurodivergent audience. This is not, and I was having a lot of little, I don't know, I was talking about like wrestling in the spirit with my editor
Oh, wow.
because, you know, when you're traditionally taught to edit and then you have this person that this is for a neurodivergent audience, it's not going to follow all the rules. And so I do have a how to read this book because I don't think it is, because I don't think it is what you think it is.
Yeah, there you go.
And I said, if you want to begin this book, I want you to begin this book with an impossible tangle of caution tape. If you're looking for something that resembles a classically defined memoir where everything ties up neatly with a bow, you might want to check the returns desk. I tell this,
Wow.
don't,
Wow.
if you don't want to read this, you don't have to. So every area of this, even my faith, I give people the opt out.
That's
You
good.
don't have to
That's
read
good.
this part. You don't
Yeah.
have to, and I do talk about the what we deal with, what I dealt with in the church, even when I was really struggling, and I was
Mm-hmm.
really struggling going into the church. And I would go up to the church balcony, and the quiet in the dark when there was no church, but there was just the worship team practicing, and I felt closer to God there than I did when the building was full.
Wow. So tell the audience, where can they order it? It's on
Mm,
pre-order now.
Y- It is not pre-order. It's not available for pre-order now. It'll be available in April,
Okay.
which
Okay.
yeah.
And
And
where can they go to get it?
it's going to be available everywhere. And this is
Okay.
the exciting thing. I feel a lot God has opened the doors for this book to go in places that I didn't think was possible for it. It's my actually fourth book, but um
So it will be on Amazon,
it'll
right?
be on Amazon, it'll be on Barnes& and Noble, it'll be everywhere
Okay.
that books are sold, but I am so thankful that God is opening doors for this book that I couldn't have imagined before. And in this, at the end of the book, I get people to the very end of the book with cartoons, and I had a fun thing. I had a fun time with this book because not only did I do the write it, I did all the layout, I did all the cartoons, I did all the so if you are totally ADHD, you can go through and just read the cartoons and you'll get something from it. But the at the very end of the book, there's a chapter called "You Don't Have to Read This, but I Have to Say It," and it's a salvation message for someone who's dealing with mental health issues.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what I'm so excited about is I know in reaching big, God's going to pull people in.
Yeah.
And I'm so thankful that
Mhm.
God gave me the gift of humor, and he gave me
Mhm.
the he gave me some he gave me the ability to laugh at myself. He gave
Yeah.
me the ability to laugh in the face of shame,
Mhm.
to open up the door, to let people see this girl,
Mhm.
this brain, what lengths it went to, which is totally fun, totally happy, totally. I mean, not everything's happy. I'm just saying there are some moments. If you need a laugh, you need to read this book. Um,
Right.
but at the same time, it, it moves people to understanding, and isn't that what it's all about?
Yes.
We have to, God moves us into understanding, so
Yes.
we can communicate His message better. Because first he asks us to
To
understand,
everyone.
love, understand,
Yes.
and then be the person that God has called us to be in that situation, have the discernment to know what he's calling to you to do in that
That's right.
situation.
That's right.
And moreover, love. Moreover,
Mhm.
love.
Mhm.
Don't kick people out. Don't think that make them feel less than.
Mhm.
Everybody wants to beat down people who just say, "Oh, you're living with this label."
Oh, wow.
Living with a label. You know what labels do for people? They give people clarity.
Well, Amber, look at
Mhm.
my face.
Yeah.
This is the label.
This is this is the label. This is the label. And you know what?
Yes,
And we all have something to
everybody
struggle
does.
with.
Yes.
And we can't say that we're immune to struggle.
No,
And no one will understand that struggle quite like us, and we have to
absolutely.
realize we're not gonna do that. We're not gonna
No,
be that understand others either
no.
like that.
That's right.
So I really appreciate, Dr. Velma, you having me on the program. I'm so excited. The book coming out in May 1st. I'm praying that people, not only in the church, but it'll open up
Mhm.
conversations that have kind of been kind of hidden in the back room.
Yeah.
If anything, I say even in the book, I said, if the only thing this book helps you to do is laugh, then I've done my job.
Well, I'm definitely going to share it with my daughter, and hopefully
Yeah.
she'll share it with her medical friends as well, because I think it's so important, especially the fact that you came from a place where you weren't even sure if you wanted to share your story, and yet here you are, and it needed to be told, it needed to be
Mhm,
said. So I'm
mhm.
glad God used you in that way to do that.
Oh, I'm
So,
so thankful. I
okay,
feel so
Moses.
blessed. I put so much highlighter on my face. I feel like I've been in the burning bush moment.
No, no, not at all. I'm talking about him and not wanting to speak to the group because he
Oh,
had an impediment and he didn't feel like he was
yeah,
qualified. And
yeah.
it's
You know,
amazing what God does.
God gives us our
with
qualifications.
each of us. Yes,
He, you know
absolutely.
what? He gave me more qualification when I was willing to throw my paperwork of the church, when I was being licensed.
Yeah.
When I threw that at the window, all of a sudden God opened a door that gave me even a greater ministry than I ever thought I could get.
Wow. Well, I just want to tell you, I appreciate that we were finally able to get come together.
Yes.
I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation today, and everything that you shared was so profound. Can you tell the audience how can they stay connected with you in case they want to follow you and stay in touch and see what you're
Yes.
going to do next?
Well, I have my website, shortyellowpencilrx.com. And I have a fun quiz there that you can find out if you are short yellow penciled. And you might just find out that there's a reason that you
That's
don't feel
beautiful.
right in the head.
That's beautiful. That's
But
awesome.
that is there. And I would love for people to follow. I have an Amber Weigand-Buckley author page. I have my Amber Weigand-Buckley page. Um, and I'll give that to you, Dr. Velma. I just love people just sharing life with people,
Hmm.
and there's no pretense. I'm
Okay.
not a pretense woman. There's no what you see is what you get, and I love that
That's
people
so
can
true.
share that journey with me, and be encouraged. So
Absolutely.
that's where you can connect with me. I just got a TikTok. I don't even know what I don't even know sometimes what to do with that, but I'm on there, TikTok, and it's Short Yellow Pencil RX. So
Awesome. Are you
anywhere
on
you
YouTube
go,
as well?
I am. I am gonna. Yes,
Okay.
I'm have my YouTube. It's kind of sparse right now, but I'm getting ready to put that up. Oh, another thing that I wanted to make sure I told you, I have a podcast. It is called hashtag Random Devo Thoughts All Together with Amber, and it's insights on the Jesus heart for the mind, for the ADHD mind. So
Okay.
that is fun. I have over 30 episodes of that, and
Okay.
they can find that on all the podcast platforms.
Okay.
Hashtag Random Devo Thoughts. Um, you'll find it, and it's quite fun. It's quite, as I said, God kept these things downloading me into me after, long after the book was done.
There you
So
go.
there's a podcast.
There you are. You never
Um,
know what he's going to do. Well, I
yeah.
thank you, Amber. I had enjoyed you, and for those of you who have listened in, I know you really got a good earful of great nuggets, and I'm grateful that Amber was able to come in and share her story with us. And I can't wait to see the success of the book. I hope you
Oh,
go and follow the information she's provided you so you can get your copy as well. That's coming out in May. And please stay in touch with Amber. She's provided you the tools to do that as well. She's been an absolutely great guest, and I love working with her behind the scenes as well. Thank you so much, Amber. It's been a
oh,
joy.
thank you, Dr. Velma. Appreciate it.